and welcome to a special video by Financial Earning. On today's video, I want to talk a little bit about Mullen's share count. As you can see, a lot of people have been posting about the float changing total amount over time, and some people are saying that Dave is diluting. If you do look through Mullen's filings, you can actually see that share count increasing over time, and it is equivalent to what is being shared in terms of the float count. So if you go back through the filings, you're going to actually see the amount of warrants that we had in the proxy material back in November. So if we go back to record date November 6th, you're going to see that the Mullen's common share count was at 4.13 million post-split. So pre-split, before the 1 for 100, it would have been 413,097,639 shares. If you did look as well in the proxy material as of that same record date, you would see that Equitas Capital was one of the 5% beneficial owners, and they actually had, as of that record date, issuable upon exercise of the warrants, 66,236,735 shares. Again, that is pre-split numbers. Looking at Isusa Holdings, they had theirs split up into two, some from Isusa and then some from Michael Wachs. So looking at Isusa, they had a total common share issuable upon exercise of warrants of 7,949,973. And then Michael Wachs had, again, issuable upon exercise of the warrants, common share count of 25,621,760 shares. Now, I talk about all of that because it's important to understand the record date and then some of the other information that we know in terms of when warrants were or were not exercised. So if we look at that, if Isusa was to have exercised all of their warrants on the record date, they would have actually been able to exercise 33.57 million shares, and that's a pre-split value on that November 6th date. If you jump forward to the day before the reverse split, which would be December 20th, you're going to actually see that Mullen share price went from November 6th at 31 cents a share down to 9 cents a share. That's a 70% price drop. So what does that mean? That means that the amount of shares that you can exercise for warrants, there's a factor involved. There's a multiplication factor that you have to look at. So in my opinion, the amount of shares that Isusa could have utilized if they held their warrants until December 20th could have been up to 57.07 million shares. Again, that is a share increase of 70% from what was shared on November 6th. So if you look at December 31st, 2023, we finally got a beneficial ownership disclosure of Isusa Holdings. You're going to see that the company themselves had a total of voting power of 334,223 shares, and that is post-split adjusted. And then you look at Michael Wachs, he has 445,140 shares. Again, that is post-split adjusted. What is interesting is that if you look at Mullen's filing, they put out an 8K that said as of December 21st, which was the reverse split date, all the way until the date of the 8K, which was January 24th, there were no warrants being exercised. So that means that these warrants that Isusa held would have had to have been all exercised prior to the reverse split. So all those numbers that I share with you, the range between 30-something million to 50-something million shares, those would have been exercised by Isusa. We know that they exercised them because there was a trigger involved of a beneficial ownership. Anytime that a company or lender or individual owns 5% or more of a company, they have to file that at the next monthly statement, which is 45 days after the quarter end. So that's why you saw that filing come out, that 13G/A. That was just letting us know, hey, Isusa triggered the event where they became again a 5% owner. Why did they have to trigger it again? Because they would have sold all of their common shares prior to exercising those warrants, and then they would have exercised those warrants, which would have triggered this 13G/A again. All right, so let's fast forward a little bit. Looking at the proxy material that was shared on January 12th. This is for the current share count or shareholder meeting vote that is going to be happening later this month on the 29th. You would see Mullen had a total of 5,884,693 shares. So that share increase, actually, in my opinion, is due to Isusa exercising their warrants and then dumping their shares. Now, outside of Isusa, Equitas still held on to their shares. We don't know how many of those warrants could have been exercised and then sold, but we do know that as of this record date of January 12th, they still held 870,743 shares, and that would be the amount of exercised warrants, the amount of shares that they would get for warrants if they would have done that on the record date of January 12th. Well, I can tell you folks that they did not exercise any shares on January 12th, and they didn't exercise any warrants on January 12th, and they did not exercise anything until after January 24th, if at all. And we know that because of the 8K that Mullen filed. The 8K shows that Equitas and any other lender, no one exercised any warrants, and Mullen did not offer any new warrants to any lenders during that period. So between January 24th and February 9th, that range is when there was opportunity for Equitas to have exercised their warrants. And if we do look, you will see the share total, the common share count total did increase to 6,552,470 shares. So that is an increase of 667,777 shares. So potentially, Equitas could have sold their warrants and exercised their shares at that amount in order to increase that share count. So what you're looking at right now at 6,552,470 shares could have all been due to the lenders who have been exercising their warrants. This was not any new dilution. There was no new security purchase agreement. The only other way that there could have been shares entered into the float would have been if the 2022 employee incentive program would have exercised some shares. So that's the only other way that this would be possible, but just looking at the amount of warrants that these lenders held and how many they still had or didn't have with these filings, you can see that they did exercise a significant amount of warrants. So I hope that clears things up for you a little bit. If you like this video, please consider a like and subscribing to hear more. Put a comment, let me know your thoughts, and let me know what kind of video content you'd like to see moving forward. Thanks, and have a great day.